Welcome back to my garage. Today we are going to continue with the sleeve, finishing up the ports here, or at least as much as we can finish them outside of the cylinder. I need to leave the ports a little bit smaller than what they are going to be in here to make sure I don't take too much, because when you put the sleeve down in the cylinder, the way it works is you put the cylinder in the oven, heat it up so it expands, and you put the sleeve in the freezer so it contracts, and then the sleeve will just slide right in, and you have about 5 to 10 seconds to align the ports in the sleeve with the ports in the cylinder. So if you don't get it right, then you're screwed. You have to take the sleeve out again and start from, well, redo the whole thing basically. So far I've never had a problem with the alignment, but I don't have a lot of extra material here, because it's all pretty much maxed out here. You can see how close the ports are to the stud holes. I can't remove more material on the cylinder, so I have to make sure I can actually match port the transfers, or all the ports to the cylinder when it's in place. So that's why I'm going to be leaving maybe probably less than a millimeter, but just a little bit to give me a little bit of room there when I'm putting the sleeve in, because if it's then it does. If it's like 1 degree out or something, it doesn't matter. I can just port whatever the error was. I will be porting more on one side of the port than the other then in that case. So yeah, I wanted to show you the cylinder. Last time I glued this thing in or JB welded it in. It looks like it worked out pretty good. As you can see here, this piece of material, this is what the stock port was like, the width of the stock port, and I made a little aluminum plate because I stroked the crank by 4 millimeters, which meant that my intake port was too high up in the cylinder, so I've lowered it before I bored it, and then well, it ended up like this. I just wanted to show you that. So when I'm going to do this porting, the manual porting here on the sleeve, there's a couple of things I need to think about, because I can't just put the ports straight in, because as you can see here, the transfers they are angled in different ways, and that's very important. If you get the wrong angle, then the cylinder is ruined basically. I'm not really sure how I'm going to transfer those angles to the sleeve without having it in place, so that's also why I'm leaving a little bit, so I can correct the angles later on when it's when the sleeve is inside the cylinder. Because if I were, for example, to port this angle more this way with the exhaust port here, then all the mixture that would be coming from this transfer port would be going straight into the exhaust, for example, and that would be very bad. So that's something I need to keep in mind. You can see here that I have arrows pointing in which direction the flow is supposed to go. So on with the sleeve then. I think I'm going to start with putting in a hole for the intake, and then continue with the transfers. I will leave the intake and exhaust probably pretty much unfinished as they are, because you have really easy access to them through the ports anyway. But the transfers, they are a bit more work. So yeah, let's start out with that. Made another one of these porting templates. These are the transfers that are closest to the intake port, and I'm just going to be using those to align the template on the sleeve. And this is the top of the intake port. I'm not going to bother with the bottom, because I'll do that when it's in place. So I'm just going to be using this part of the top part of the template there. So let's try and put it on. See how well we can get this to align. There we go. So let's put a hole in there. So there we go. It's not very pretty, but it's just a starter hole basically, so it'll be fine. So yeah, let's continue with some manual boarding now. I want to show you some of the tools that I'm going to be using. Normally when I going to start out with rear transfers, or front, depending on which way you look at them, but these ones, because they are just 90 degrees pointing straight towards each other, so that should be relatively easy. Now I will start on these edges here, this one and that one. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to look at the cylinder and look for a point that they are aimed towards, which is for this one it is aimed somewhere around here. So if I just keep my tool pointed towards that, then hopefully it will be fine. So that looks a lot better already. Show you from the outside too. And what I'm gonna do now, I'm going to remove the paper and make some do some marking here on the sides, and then finish up the lower and top edges a little more precise. Anreisfluid blau. On the original sleeve, the transfers, they stop right below the top of the piston, so the piston actually sticks out into the port a little bit. From what I understand, it's good for piston cooling, but bad for performance. So I'm going to make the bottom of the port just above the top of the piston. So now that I've marked everything up, I can really get into the corners and reduce the radius a little bit. For example, here, since you can see there's some material left that doesn't need to be there. So let's go. There we go. I think this is good enough for now. The cylinder is going to be bored, or the sleeve is going to be bored quite a bit, so there's no sense in finishing the inside just yet. because there's going to bore it, I think, about 2 millimeters, something like that. So I think this is ready to be put into the cylinder. Of course, in case you were wondering, I need to shorten the sleeve a little bit and put in the transfer inlets, or I guess that's what you call them. But I'm going to do that when the sleeve is in the cylinder already, because then it's going to be a bit more sturdy then. So I'm just going to chamfer these edges a little bit so it doesn't get stuck when it's on its way into the cylinder, and I think that should be good for now. Alright, so I think that's gonna be it for this video. I'm a little bit sick, so I'm going to take it easy the rest of the day. Next time the sleeve is going into the cylinder. Thanks for watching again. Comment if you have a comment about whatever, or a question. Subscribe if you haven't done that already, and I'll see you next time. Bye.